This Yuletide miniseries is a replay of episodes originally published in 2024. This way, the episodes are conveniently queued up in your podcast player so you don't have to go searching for them, and you never lose your spot in the listening order. As always, we're celebrating Yuletide in real time in the Numinous Network. I hope you'll join us for daily altar time from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific, starting December 21st, winter solstice, and going through till New Year on January 1st. We're gathering on Zoom to check in, light our candles, and do a 20-minute guided trance journey to connect with the Yuletide theme of the day. So join us in the Numinous Network for Yuletide. Sign up at carmenspaniola.com. Welcome to the Spirit of Yuletide, a Numinous podcast mini-series where we explore European folk magic traditions of the winter season, seeking inspiration for animist, anti-capitalist traditions to celebrate today and for years to come. If you're familiar with my cookbook, The Spirited Kitchen, this mini-series will be a companion and a massive expansion to the overview in the Yuletide chapter. And if you're not familiar with the book and you enjoyed this podcast, you'll probably love the book because it's the same concept, animist, anti-capitalist folklore traditions, but for the entire wheel of the year, every season. And let me tell you, it makes a great gift. The first 5 or 6 episodes of this miniseries will provide an overview of the history and folklore surrounding Yuletide. There's some tiny episodes in there on the Yuletide apothecary, bestiary, and foodstuffs that I think will really appeal to all the green witches and hearth witches and head witches out there, hedge witches, as well as an episode for folks who are trying to shift their annual holiday traditions away from hustle and bustle, away from the compulsory consumption vibe. And that episode is called Grounding the Season. It's about tuning in to what we really care about, what truly matters to us, what could be nourishing for our body and soul this season. And it's about releasing the pressure, dismissing the inner critic, letting go of notions of perfection or expectation. Getting grounded will help you focus, set priorities and boundaries, and proceed from a place of clarity and intention towards creating a more meaningful holiday season. As always on this podcast, we're looking through an animist lens, an anti-capitalist lens, an anti-oppressive lens, while maintaining a strong tether to joy and awe and appreciation, to connection to ourselves and each other and collective care. Because we can do both. We can acknowledge the hard stuff and amplify the good stuff. And I mean the truly good stuff, the nature-based rituals, the animist practices, and comforts of contact nutrition that we can weave into our everyday, that we can share with our beloveds and use as levers to pry attention away from Christmas hype back towards the real work of winter, which is to drop into ceremony and ritual and meaning-making. And that's been the work of winter for people in the Northern Hemisphere since time immemorial. Survive winter together. Rejoice in the simple blessings that come from existing in a world that can be so beautiful, even amidst the harshest of circumstances. From that place of awe and wonder and connection, we can become focused and ready to step into purposeful action when the light and the warmth and the green grass return. As I said, these first few episodes are going to help you to get oriented and prepared, get into the spirit of Yuletide for a couple weeks. And then new episodes will go live each day from December 21st through January 1st. In each installment, I'll share some history and folklore that relates to that specific day's place in the overall rhythm of Yuletide. I'll provide ritual and craft suggestions, food inspiration, and altar offerings that are appropriate for the day. My hope is you're going to use that as a jumping off point for your own intuition and your own creativity. I hope you'll share these episodes and activities with your loved ones and start some new annual traditions. And if you're sharing on Instagram, please tag me. I'm just at Carmen Spaniola. Please tag me because I'm a bit of a looky-loo. I'm a bit of a voyeur. I love seeing people's altars, rituals. I love seeing the recipes you cook from the Spirited Kitchen. I love seeing your Christmas trees. all of it. Please tag me. And if you'd like to spend time with folks who are celebrating in similar ways, you can join us in the Numinous Network. One of the ways we're observing the season is with a daily half-hour altar time with a guided meditation around the day's theme. So between December 21st and January 1st, half an hour every morning, morning Pacific. We're also having special live events like making burn bundles for the winter solstice fire and a special incense blend as an offering to the ancestors. And of course, if you just need a little extra support because you find the holidays kind of stressful or sort of lonely, you can get access to the Safe and Sound Protocol with your membership. That's a music listening program to support nervous system regulation, to sort of calm and soothe yourself. Everything's included with your membership. There's absolutely no pressure either to join for long term. You are totally welcome to just come for the month of December. We have dozens and dozens of members who return every year at Yuletide and only stay for like a month or maybe two. And we're always really happy to see them. We welcome them back with open arms. It's like they're coming home from the holidays. We love it. We love it. Okay. Enough yapping. Let's get to it. Let's get to the spirit of Yuletide. Yule is the Anglo-Saxon name for a 2-month midwinter season that spans all of December and January. By the time Christianity had swept across Europe in the 15th century, Yuletide had narrowed to mean more or less a 12-day feast of the Nativity. In this program, I hope to inspire you to determine what feels spiritually significant to you, whether that means connecting with the holiday spirit for a single night at the winter solstice, or for 8 days of Hanukkah, for the 12 days of the Nativity, or for a 4 to 6 week downshift in activity with a 12-day period of daily ritual observance starting at the solstice, like myself. Yuletide is more a season than an event, so it adapts well to the complexities of modern, self-directed spirituality. Essentially an earth-honoring tradition, the basic rationale of Yule also allows nuance and flexibility for folks of mixed heritage backgrounds and for people who aren't quite sure what their spirituality consists of yet and are just exploring and trying new things. If you're someone who feels best when you're like ahead of the class and you want to be able to anticipate and plan in advance for each day's ritual observances, you're going to have to get the Spirited Kitchen and skip ahead to the Yuletide chapter. The real planners are going to want to listen carefully to that episode called Grounding the Season with paper and pen in hand, and maybe your calendar. If I was a listener, that's what I would do. And plan ahead for some of the rituals that you want to participate in this year. But Yuletide festivities vary a lot. They vary thematically from place to place and over time, but we see some consistencies that are fairly easy to adapt to most places and circumstances. The Yuletide celebrations, as I'm sharing them in this podcast series, they generally come from the pagan mythologies of old Europe, namely Scotland, Scandinavia, Germany, England, Wales, Ireland, and parts of Eastern Europe. The actual start date of Yuletide varies depending on the culture. In some places, Yule begins in very early December. In other places, it begins on the winter solstice around December 21st. Still others begin on Christmas Day. But the main constant here is that there are 12 days and nights of observances that honor the shift from the longest nights of the year to the gradual lengthening of days. Most traditions have a handful of observances in common. Number 1, the winter solstice. Number 2, there's one night or more to honor the ancestors, especially mothers. Number 3, there's one night or more to honor kinship, community, and feasting. Number 4, there's one night or more to acknowledge supernatural beings. And number 5, there's one night for divination or oath-making for the year ahead. And that's basically a slightly more pagan version of the standard Christian and capitalist model of Christmas Eve, Christmas, Boxing Day, and New Year's Eve, with just an additional observance on the solstice, but essentially the same kind of scope and scale of days of observance. And so those 5 special nights of earth-based, animist, ancestral, and supernatural observances were pretty much what our family did. Just that. Up until a few years ago, we didn't do the whole 12 days. But then I realized how much I loved adding to my altar for all of the 12 days, December 21st to January 1st. It's kind of like an Advent calendar in reverse. And so then over time, I layered in making special foods on those certain days. And then I really got into leaving out offerings for the house brownies and the birds and raccoons and the deer outside. And I guess the rats, come on, like that's pretty much who is eating stuff at my outdoor altar, I'm sure. And who's to say the rats aren't kin? Anyway, then I started to do particular rituals to honor the ancient dead, and then on a different day, the beloved recent dead. And so eventually, Yuletide just kind of spread until it became the whole 12 days. And now Yuletide, is a whole thing at our house. But somehow I do still manage to keep it pretty low key. I know it may not sound like it at first. It might sound like a lot. I'd be like, wow, this woman is like intense about Yuletide. But the thing is, when ritual just becomes part of how you live, it's woven into your everyday all year. It's not an extra layer of anything. It's just how you live. And now it just happens to be winter, and the world is also foregrounding ritual a bit more. And, a lot of people are taking time away from work, and many people aren't taking time off work. They're struggling to survive capitalism and try to layer all of this like holiday cheer on it. So, I think there's lots of people who might want a different way to celebrate, something more moving, more meaningful. And it's nice that we, like all of us here enjoying this mini-series, are all getting on the same page about this, right? And if you're new to living in the rhythm of the seasons, if you're new to incorporating ritual into your everyday, if you're new to thinking and relating like an animist, then I hope you won't feel overwhelmed at all the possibilities. They're just that, right? They're possibilities, ways you could proceed in the world. But it's not dogma, and you definitely don't have to do all of it, any of it even. You just like listen and observe for the first year. Nobody's judging you. And you don't need to perform the role of perfect animist or like perfect village witch or perfect keeper of ancestral wisdom and tradition and ceremonies in your family, right? Be flexible as you find your rhythm, and be aware of your capacity. Try not to pressure yourself to perform. The whole point of Yuletide is attunement and connection. The tide part of Yuletide means time. Yuletide is like saying Christmas time, all one word, right? The suffix tide refers to a season or a period or the hours. For me, there's magic in the word Yuletide. It's Yule season, Yule period, Yule hours. It's like casting a spell for more time. So every time you hear me say Yuletide, imagine time expanding. Every time I say Yuletide, notice the hours becoming more capacious. Every time I say Yuletide, sense time slowing down for a quiet period of gentle winter rest. You have plenty of time. Take all the hours you need to move through the season of Yule in the fashion that suits you. And this is what cultures do. They adapt customs to suit the time and the place. And that's what makes Yuletide so wonderful and endlessly fascinating. So, getting down to business here, we've got 12 days of Yuletide, and these represent the 12 months of the year. The 12 days of Yule replay the activities of the year in miniature, so the work of January is acknowledged, remembered, and honored on the first night of Yule, December 21st. The work of February is acknowledged on the second night of Yule, and so on and so on. So whatever activity occurs in August will find itself mirrored on the 8th night of Yuletide. So this means you can interpret and plan your Yuletide observances in the order that reflects the wheel of the year where you live. So let's walk through the order of the 12 themes of Yuletide. Each one of these themes will be elaborated later on in this mini-series when I publish a separate episode for each day. But just looking ahead to get the sense of things. December 21st is known as Mother's Night. We can also honor the Earth Mother or Mama Bear energy, which we do when we give attention to the constellation of Ursa Major. December 22nd, Father's Night, when we recognize the fathers and grandfathers of our patrilineage and also the spirits of place on the land where we live. On December 23rd, we recognize the Wild Hunt and the ancient dead and the animal allies of Yuletide. December 24th is about honoring the child within. December 25th is when we celebrate the return of the light and healing. December 26th, we connect with our supernatural allies and we receive support from the unseen realms. December 27th is about balance, siblings, and harmonizing binaries. December 28th, we attend to hearth and home, giving special attention to fire as soul of the world. December 29th is about blessings and gratitude for the bounty of the earth. December 30th, we take time to mourn and honor the beloved dead from the past year. December 31st is about hospitality and community connections. And January 1st is about oath-making and visioning the year ahead. So this is how I've overlaid the activities of the year onto the 12 days and lined up the patterns with the customs and themes that emerge across time and place. You may want to switch things up here and there for sure. This program is not attempting to claim fidelity to any mythic heathen lifestyle or reconstruct the past in any way. And similarly, there are going to be times when the lore of the pagan Yuletide and the Christian Christmas overlap. And this is just what's been happening historically, for the past couple thousand years. But I'm going to attempt to lift up the pagan roots of Christmas traditions because I find that kind of history fun. I find it illuminating. It helps us decide which customs we want to conserve for future generations and which ones we're ready to let go of. Understanding the historic context of traditions can reveal new understandings and unleash new possibilities for evolution. Now, before we go any further, I want to address the notion of this time of year as a child-centric holiday. Social historian Ingeborg Weber-Kellerman notes that children weren't really particularly associated with Yuletide or Christmas until about the 16th century, and that was only amongst the aristocratic elite. It wasn't until the 18th century that this became sort of more broadly a trend among the rest of us in the working class. Though around the year 100, Common Era, there is a written record by Pliny the Younger of children in ancient Rome singing about their winter holiday, Saturnalia, being a school holiday. So clearly, some things never change. Kids are always excited about school holidays. However, it's really not until the advent of the Industrial Revolution around the late 1700s that children and gift-giving are tied to the holiday with a bow. Prior to that, Christmas had a little bit more of a Halloween vibe, actually. The perils of winter included many malevolent supernatural beings, and the lessons of the season were very much about getting all your work done so you didn't have to leave the house on the darkest days. They were about ensuring that your larder would be well stocked so you could survive a cold, lean winter, ideally without strangling a family member because you'd be in close quarters more often in the cold season. So for hundreds of years, Yuletide was about physically and emotionally surviving the harsh realities of a long winter and encouraging folks to do so with kindness and compassion and generosity of spirit and patience, I guess. And then an interesting thing happened that shifted the whole scene to something much closer to what we experience today. And that interesting thing, as I mentioned, was the Industrial Revolution. Between the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815 and the multiple revolutions that swept across Europe in 1848 during what was known as the Springtime of the Peoples. In between those two tumultuous eras was a 3-decade period of peace. In Germany, this period of peace gave rise to an influential art and design movement called the Biedermeier period. The themes and style of this period influenced the next 100 years of design, from Germany and Austria to Sweden and across Scandinavia and deep into Russia. During the Biedermeier period, the middle class grew, and the arts and design became more accessible to common folk. Painting, music, furniture and interior design, literature, just aesthetics in general took on calming, peaceful and homely themes and featured scenes of country life and family life. People were tired of war. Growing urbanization and industrialization meant that when people had a chance to stay home instead of working, they were pretty happy to stay in and be nesty. Manufacturers and artists now had a larger audience of people in the cities with some disposable income. And this led to some of the first waves of mass culture around Yuletide, including postcards, tree ornaments, toys, books, and sheet music. Composers and publishers of this era realized they could sell more sheet music during the month of December than the rest of the year combined. So they hurried to meet Christmas deadlines to put out child-friendly music, such as Engelbert Humperdinck's opera of Hansel and Gretel, which we'll hear more about on December 24th, as well as Robert Schumann's Album for the Young, which was one of the first albums quite specifically marketed as a family Christmas album to take advantage of holiday sales. A great measure of what we associate with Christmas today in terms of decoration and aesthetic and Christmas hype can trace its lineage to Austria and Germany during that period. So, in short, capitalism is where Yuletide lore shifts from being slightly creepy and very concerned about surviving the dangerous threats of winter to a light, bright, pro-happiness extravaganza fueled by candy, music, toys, and gifts. More accurately, spending. I think bringing back some animist pagan traditions brings a nice dose of grounding, balance, relaxation, and calmness to the season. And so now let's talk about working with the seasonal altar, the place where we can anchor that calmness into our home. Now, I've already gone pretty deeply into working with altars in episode 239, Altar, Shrines, and Ancestors, which was part of the Witch's New Year miniseries. But Yuletide is an even longer period of layering onto the altar in daily devotion over 12 days. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more here. So for me, the centerpiece of the season is my Yuletide altar. And if you don't customarily work with an altar in your day-to-day, I highly recommend you give it a try over Yuletide. It's so fun. It's so sweet. It's such a creative and easy way to put your soul at the center of your life for a few minutes every day. And it's a really nice way to introduce ancestral veneration and animistic practices into your daily routine and into your home to share with family, especially children. So here's how you do it. First, you just lay down a piece of cloth or put down a tray or clean off a shelf, anything to delineate your sacred space. You could just tip over a wooden box and put it upside down to make a little platform if you want. This year, I'm using a little mirrored tray because I'm living in a super tiny space and I might need to shuffle my altar between spots at times. So I think delineating sacred space with a little tray is a really practical idea, and it's quite pretty too. You'll probably want to start with a candle on there and maybe some greenery, and then something that reminds you of the winter season, some kind of icon or image, maybe an angel figurine or an oracle card depicting an old crone with silver hair. Maybe you have an old Christmas card or one with a painting of a winter scene, or maybe there's an ornament. It's anything that sets the tone for deep winter contemplation. Every day, you'll freshen up your altar a little bit to correspond with that theme of Yuletide, and you'll keep adding to it bit by bit until you have a fulsome congregation of symbols and figurines and offerings laid out on New Year's Day. And remember, this can be so easy, like using ornaments to represent themes. Awesome. You could also just make offerings instead of trying to find a symbol, like put a little bit of cookie on your altar, a little bit of cheese. You can even just keep it super simple and just light your candle each day and meditate on the theme with us in our live half hour of altar time in the network. Or by yourself, it doesn't matter. But you don't have to buy anything or make anything or do anything extra if you don't feel like it. But if you do want to do a little extra, if you want to do and be a little extra like me, this is a fun place to focus that enthusiasm because there's so many options and it's so fun. Now, it wouldn't be Yuletide if I didn't share a little bit more of a creepy story, just a little creepy detail to set us all on edge. That's what Yuletide loves. So let's take a moment to remember Fumbulvinter. Much ado is made of Yule in the Nordic countries, perhaps in part because of this fearsome myth around Fumbulvinter. This apocalyptic prophecy is from the epic sagas of the Poetic Edda, the Old Norse poems, parts of which have been dated to the 10th century. Fumbulvinter is a year with 3 successive winters, with storms coming from all directions and no spring or summer. It is followed by endless war until only one man and one woman survive by hiding in the forest together. The forest where they live is also the fabled location of Yggdrasil, the mythical world tree that connects the 9 realms of Norse cosmology. The modern Christmas tradition of bringing an evergreen tree indoors has its roots in Yggdrasil. Some surmise that the myth of Fumbulvinter originated during the major climate change event that caused a deep freeze in the Nordic regions around 650 BCE. Others posit that the prophecy is coming true right now with the converging climate emergencies we're experiencing and, if I do say so myself, the upcoming Amok shutdown. If you've been listening to my Witches New Year podcast series, the one with Hummingbird, where we talked about some of the major transits. Okay, this is a bit of a sidebar, but the Atlantic meridional overturning current shutdown, it's not exactly an ice age, but it's going to be cold in some places for a long time, long winters. So all the more reason, my friends, to honor the gods and goddesses at this fragile time when their help is so badly needed. Now, how do we combat the winter? Well, this brings us round to the Yule log. So if you are someone who's buying a Christmas tree this year, maybe buy one that's a foot longer than you actually need. Because if you don't already have a Yule log tradition, this is a good time to begin. You could either forage one in the forest or buy a log wherever firewood is on sale, or, as I said, cut off and save the bottom 12 inches or more for your Christmas tree to start this tradition. Now, in many places around the world, from the British Isles to the Balkans, from Iceland to the Mediterranean, it's believed that your ancestors congregate around the hearth of your home. So lighting the Yule log and retaining the ashes for good luck and saving a piece of wood to start next year's fire with is a widespread tradition. So first, if you have this log that you're going to burn in a fireplace, you might want to sprinkle it with some alcohol as a libation for your ancestors and then light the fire to signal the start of festivities. Now, lots of us don't have fireplaces. There are other things you could do. In the Spirited Kitchen, I drill holes in a piece of wood. In the holes goes taper candles. And I save that. I use that every single year. So the same Yule log comes out every year, just like all the other Christmas ornaments. Now, back in the day in Scotland, the Yule log was massive, as tall and as long as a man sometimes, which is like extra impressive since Scotland has basically been like denuded of forests for centuries. Anyway, the reason for this giant log is because the festivities and the best hard apple cider, they would continue to flow as long as the fire was burning. So people tried to keep the Yule fire going for as long as 12 whole days if possible. Now, if you do burn a Yule log, whether it's throughout the season or just on one night in your fireplace, or maybe you go out and have a bonfire on winter solstice, What can you do with the ashes? Well, you can use them in protection magic by sprinkling them along the perimeter of your home or the land you live on, or spread them in your garden or on your compost heap to nourish and regenerate your soil with the blessings of the ancestors. In Greece near Mount Olympus, they gather the ashes from the cedar log fire that has been burning for 12 days, and then they mix those ashes with water from a nearby sacred river. Then they take them home and throw them into the four corners of the vineyard, as well as at the foot of apple and fig trees. So that's all for this episode. In the next one, as I said, I'll get you oriented and grounding the season. You'll get very clear on where to focus your energies, how to set boundaries. It'll be a little trancy, just like our altar time in the network. And then the next 3 episodes after that are going to highlight the folklore surrounding the plants, animals, and foods of Yuletide. And then a special episode new this year is one on the Yuletide monsters, Krampus and St. Lucia. So taken all together, these episodes in the early part of December will help you plan your rituals, connect with your special allies and affinities of the season, and look ahead for opportunities to share special dishes or baked goods or moments, experiences that you might wish to have with your loved ones. Good Yule to you, and until next time, take care.